The State Department is determined to protect Americans' right to free speech and to counter the malign influence and actions of the Chinese Communist Party. We are using and will continue to use every tool in our tool chest to make sure that we know who it is who wants to come into this country and if they should be allowed to come in. The United States, I further can say here, will not tolerate the CCP's exploitation of U.S. universities or theft. You know the nature of what China has been doing. With technology, right, stealing information, intellectual property, U.S. research, copyrights, etc. This is not new or confusing, and this is one way that we certainly can try to mitigate that issue. Over the last few days, Secretary Rubio has announced new visa policies that put America first. I'm sure none of you have any questions about those. The State Department is determined to protect Americans' right to free speech and to counter the malign influence and actions of the Chinese Communist Party. The bottom line, we are using and will continue to use every tool in our tool chest to make sure that we know who it is who wants to come into this country and if they should be allowed to come in. Every sovereign nation has a right to secure its borders and to make sure they know who is in their nation and if they are safe to be here.
I do have a couple of questions,
sure.
But I'll keep them brief. On the visa policy, specifically as it relates to China and the Chinese students, the statement that came out last night was, it wasn't very specific, shall we say, about what affiliations with the Chinese Communist Party and what critical areas of study would be applicants for visas under those would be, would be subjected to more scrutiny. So I'm wondering if there is an answer to what is the actual, Chinese Communist Party affiliation that would make you ineligible for a visa, or what are examples of the critical areas in which will be subject to.
Well, since starting here at the State Department in January, I've been impressed with a number of things, most everything, but also learning about the nature of the visas. And I've said here regularly, many people watching around the world might not know, is that we don't give details about what our methods are regarding visas. Of course, everyone is vetted. I think if you've gone through the process, it's about filing for a visa, and then you have to have a meeting. And you do it in your home country, your consulate, your embassy. And that's the process. So there is a vetting, there always has been. What we don't discuss, again, because of privacy issues, but also because it's different for each person, that there are a series of dynamics that can be applied, questions that can be asked, issues looked at, and we use every tool that we have to vet and to make sure we know who's coming in. In this particular case, the United States is putting America first by beginning to revoke visas of Chinese students as warranted, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party, as you mentioned, Matt, or studying in critical fields, and enhancing scrutiny of visas for all Chinese nationals, including Hong Kong passport holders. I will not be getting into the details, not only of what the details are regarding the scrutiny and the methods regarding the visa itself, but also when it comes to critical fields. I was rather pleased, having seen very often announcements that don't really give any information, and there's reasons for that, for national security, because there's negotiations, it's diplomatic, et cetera, or giving away the nature of how we choose to do things might give up our hand and make certain things less effective. In this case, when we think of critical fields, which is obviously a very specific phrase, we think about national security, the nature of how we keep America safe and secure and more prosperous. And it is important to have, I think, a broad base, because that could mean something different to many people. It could mean many things. And this is going to be up to the people making the decisions. And I think that that's in the framework of what we've discussed regarding the visa actions as well, when it comes to keeping America safe. The United States, I further can say here, will not tolerate the CCP's exploitation of U.S. universities or theft of U.S. research, intellectual property, or technologies to grow its military power, conduct intelligence collection, or repress voices of opposition. The Trump administration is focused on protecting our nation and our citizens by upholding our national security and public safety through our visa process, obviously very openly and transparently applied by Secretary Marco Rubio. Every visa adjudication is a national security decision, every single one of them. Every prospective traveler to the United States undergoes interagency security vetting, prohibiting entry to the United States by those who might pose a threat to U.S. national security or public safety is key to protecting U.S. citizens at home. So we've experienced this through these last several weeks. It is something that is at the heart and really at the front line of protecting the country. And we're taking it seriously, and we're being open about the nature of what's happening in this particular instance.
So could I just ask that last bit that you just said, which was not in the statement last night and is a little bit more specific about?
About the nature of the theft of certain things.
Yes.
Well, again, and as reporters here all and curious people, you know the nature of what China has been doing about, with technology, right? Stealing information, intellectual property, U.S. research, copyrights, et cetera. This is not new or confusing, and this is one way that we certainly can try to mitigate that issue.
There are hundreds of thousands of Chinese students currently in the U.S. What proportion does the State Department expect will face visa revocations?
Oh, I can't answer that at all. I mean, one of the things we also, even if I was inclined to want to answer, is we're not going to speculate on where this would go. A lot of this clearly perhaps has not been done before as we look at this dynamic and make a determination of exactly what's been happening in this country. A great deal of what President Trump has done and what Secretary Rubio is doing is beginning to look at certain things, whether it's foreign aid, the nature of visas, how people are getting here, what's happening at the universities, the things we've seen that we don't like that have emerged from them. But I certainly would not hazard to suggest that the numbers matter. What the story is here is that the issue of being serious about safety for the country matters, and we're going to look at that at every single front. So I think it's less about numbers and more about the fact that we're keeping America safe and taking the actions that we need to do that.
At the tail end of Trump's first administration, the U.S. revoked visas for more than 1,000 Chinese students and researchers that were deemed security risks. Should we expect the actions that Secretary Rubio announced yesterday to exceed those first-term measures?
You love the numbers. She loves the numbers, Daphne from Reuters. How many originally did you say Chinese students were here?
The hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. And so you've provided a number of about 1,000, which I'm not quite sure how that number even would have been a number that you could rely on, because Consular Affairs does not provide numbers. We don't discuss visas that are issued, visas that are removed, things that are revoked. Those are numbers that are not shared, are not provided. And I would suggest using caution if someone is giving you a number like that. I have no idea what the numbers will be. What I do know is that the people who are deemed to be a threat to the country or a problem now will be vetted again or looked at seriously, and Americans will be safer. That's the story here.
And then just on the visa restriction policy announced yesterday over the censoring of Americans, can you provide any specific examples of what actions prompted the U.S. to institute this policy? And when might we expect any visa restrictions to be implemented?
In a case like this, you're looking at a policy that is a reflection of what the Trump administration and the American people care about, which is the idea of Americans being censored. We experienced this through COVID, the nature of our ability to be able to speak our minds. And while I won't give you or can give you or would give you specifics about how this particular restriction would be approached, which is not done in a blanket way, right? That there's individuals who are flagged or who are seen as being a participant in some aspect of the censorship of Americans. What I can say is that all of what you see emanating from the Trump administration and the State Department is a reflection of the policy of this administration and what the American people want and expect when it comes to what their futures are going to hold. Again, on visas,
Yes.
Hold on, please.
Still on visas.
Still on visas. One moment, I'll be back with you. Yes.
One on the cable that went on Tuesday, it said they expected this expanded social media vetting guidance for visa applicants to go out in the coming days. Are you still tracking that timeline, and give us any
Yes.
guidance on what that is going to
Yes,
look
I can't give you a specific timeline, but there will be more information. What I can say is that, in general, because that was an internal communication that was leaked, At the same time, we have confirmed that the details are accurate. Also, the Trump administration is focused on protecting our nation and our citizens by upholding the highest standards of national security and public safety through the visa process specifically. Every adjudication, as I noted to you, is a national security decision, and a visa, as a reminder, is not a privilege. It's a privilege. It's not a right. It's not a birthright. It's not something that you're owed, no matter where you come from. Every prospective traveler to the United States undergoes interagency security vetting, and this is important with these conversations because it seems like only certain groups are facing vetting with visas. Every single person does. So I would say that, yes, you're going to get more information, and this is, as a result, not an interminable kind of end. There is an end point, and it should be rather quick as consulates and embassies make adjustments when it comes to how they handle
Can we
visas.
expect the appointments to open back up immediately after that guidance goes out to posts?
Well, one thing I can tell you, a few things I can say is people can still make their application, do their regular steps, but it's a two-step process, right? You apply, and then you have to get an appointment to meet with people, to talk with them. Unlike often with the passport or something, there's a very specific process. So right now, there might be some delay, and what I'm told to encourage people to do is to regularly check to see when those spaces open. So as opposed to, let me just say, I would not be recommending that if this was going to be weeks or months. So if you've applied for a visa and you want to, please do. Then if you're not getting an appointment, there's this online system. You continually recheck to see when those spots might open. I can't tell you immediately after some, indeterminate moment of an action, but I can tell you that it's something that would happen perhaps sooner than later.